What makes you want to speak publicly right now?
I was frustrated because I feel like the story and what's being communicated out is not accurate.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly is not accurate?
That the church didn't do any work, for one, and for two, the pieces regarding me leaving to go work for the church is not accurate either. And it just frustrates me that a community that does amazing work is being targeted unfairly, when I think that in all actuality, the state is shifting blame when they really need to be focused on their own house, essentially.
DHS says that Zion committed grant fraud. Is that true?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They, and I would say they did more work than they were even paid for. They were responding to crisis around the clock. During the time that the funding was given to them, I don't know if you remember, and sort of what sparked the initial conversations around the funding, there were 5 children that were killed in North Minneapolis, really close together. Anaya Allen was, it was during that time. And that's what sparked the conversation to try to find funding for this community.
What exactly is a wellness collaborative?
So the church was the contract holder for the funding, and the collaborative was 17 organizations that came together in the North Minneapolis area to form this collaborative. Community violence intervention organizations, mental health organizations, substance use disorder organizations, that all came together to serve the North Minneapolis community specifically.
Did Zion Church and the Wellness Collaborative go to DHS and ask for this grant?
They did not. DHS went to them and said, hey, you're doing phenomenal work. Let's make it bigger. Let's expand it. We want you to go here. We want you to take this here. We want you to take it there. And again, it was never one person. It was a team. It was federal relations. It was community engagement. It was mental health. It was substance use. It was accounting. It was literally a team of at least 9 people from DHS, including leadership at DHS, that sat with Marquise, Pastor Heron, others from the collaborative in a meeting, in multiple meetings, and said, we're so glad you're trusting us. We want to continue to build this relationship. Let's do it.
Pastor Heron was convicted of a financial crime about 25 years ago, and then was given this grant of taxpayer money. Is there a problem with that?
Pastor Heron paid for his crime 25 years ago, and he is a well-respected man in his community. He serves tirelessly to his community. To scrutinize Pastor Heron now isn't fair, because he does amazing work, and he gives, like I said, tirelessly to his community, and he's so well-respected. As I said earlier, when really the problem isn't the community and it's not the church, it's that DHS made mistakes in how they managed and did things, and instead of doing what they need to do systemically, they're pointing the fingers outward, and that's not fair and it's not right.
In your role as the grant manager during this time, did you know for a fact that Zion was doing the work that they were being paid through the grant to do?
100%, yeah. Absolutely.
And you saw it with your own eyes?
Yes, and they met regularly. We held meetings monthly with multiple staff from DHS where we met to discuss what they were working on. We were invited to events. There were multiple DHS staff present at events. They gave reports regularly showing that they were doing the work. Understand how you can say they didn't do work when there were DHS staff present at events that they held. So it's just mind-blowing to me that they're making these allegations and saying that no work was done when there were DHS staff present. Marquise was invited to speak on panels that DHS staff were a part of. They were very much front-facing in the community. They were asked at one point, and this was as I was leaving DHS, and for the second part of their contract, they were asked to expand their work at one point. So if they weren't doing work, why were they asked to then expand it into St. Paul and into South Minneapolis? And why were they asked to expand and train statewide? So it doesn't make sense. So if there was question about whether or not they were working and whether or not they were executing the terms of their contract, why then would you offer them additional money to expand the work that they were doing? Mm-hmm. It just doesn't make any sense.
The legislative auditor and DHS said that you quit and became a consultant for Zion, therefore getting paid with the taxpayer grant money that you used to manage. Is that accurate? Why did you leave DHS?
I left DHS primarily because of all of the work related, all of the things around Kairos and refocus recovery. And I was offered an opportunity to take the position I'm in now.
And more specifically, what about that stuff that was going on with the fraud within recovery programs, that when you were inside DHS, what specifically made you want to leave at that time?
I was aware that Kairos/refocus recovery was not eligible as a billable vendor to bill Medicaid for peer support services. I at one point reported to provider enrollment that they were not an eligible vendor and worked with them to essentially flip the switch to cut their billing off. And I was immediately scolded, if you will, and was told, no, you can't do that. It was over the 4th of July. Remember that very distinctly, and was told, no, you can't do that. Turn it back on. What are you doing? And at that point was sort of removed from that entire conversation. And at that point I was just like, you know what, this feels gross, this is yucky. I realized that money has power, and it didn't align with me anymore. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I realized that wasn't a place I wanted to be. It was essentially sort of sucking the life out of me being there. So I started looking and realizing that it wasn't where I wanted to be, and this opportunity came here in the position that I'm in now. Withdrawal management was another one of my areas while I was at DHS, so I took the opportunity to come here.
Now that there's been so much reporting on that recovery issue, what do we know now to be
that
true?
They committed millions of dollars of fraud,
and you tried to stop it?
Absolutely. And that's another reason why all of this is so frustrating to me.
You tried to stop the fraud, and your managers within DHS didn't allow you to do so.
And here I am. And I think that's what's so frustrating to me with all of this now is I'm sitting here speaking to you with my name getting thrown into a mess that it shouldn't even be thrown into, when I've always carried myself in an ethical manner, yet here I am, mm-hmm. speaking with you about something. Mm-hmm. And it's very frustrating and disheartening. So I left DHS, took this opportunity in a position that I absolutely love, mm-hmm. With amazing people. After I had been established here for several months, Marquise reached out to me and asked me if I had the capacity to provide some assistance to them through consulting. I asked him if we could speak to my old supervisor at DHS just to make sure there wasn't any conflict. So we did. He and I both met with her and said, is there any perceived conflict with me doing this? She said, no, lots of people leave DHS and do consulting work all of the time. You're no longer an employee here. It's a non-issue. So after we met with her, I did maybe 10 hours every couple weeks. invoiced them and got paid, I think, monthly from them. Nominal. I mean, very minimal from them. I have a full-time job, so it wasn't like it was any income I depended on.
Right. And would 17,000 sound about right?
Over the course of 2 years, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything substantial that I can say, yep, that was the amount.
Even the way that it's characterized, though, in that search warrant that I showed you, is that accurate, that there was no invoices showing that you did work for them?
There was absolutely invoice, because I had to, it was all, like I was saying to you, it was all done through an app. So they had everything set up because they had an accounting firm that they paid. So everything was done through an accounting firm and an app. So in order for me to get any sort of payment through them, there was an invoice created through an app. The app was, the invoice was sent through the app, and then the payment came through the app. So it was all tracked through an app. Nothing was done until after I left DHS. There was no payments received. There was nothing done until after my time with DHS.
So you didn't leave DHS to go work for the church?
No. Absolutely not.
Were you the only former grant manager to provide consulting for a grantee after they leave DHS?
No, it happens all the time. And again, I had a meeting with my former supervisor at DHS, Marquise, and I said, is there any perceived conflict with me doing this? Because I wanted to make sure that I wanted to help them, because the work that they were doing is important. And they had concerns of even entering into any sort of agreement with DHS. They, because of the systemic racism, because of the historical trauma, they didn't want to take money from DHS. So when Marquise reached out to me, he said, Dana, we just want to make sure we're doing everything right. And I said, okay, let's make sure it's okay for me to do this. So we had that meeting. And even after we had that initial meeting, I participated in several meetings after that. And there was never any question or concern. Dana, you know what? I circled back. You probably shouldn't be doing this. Never was there any conversation that said otherwise. Dana, you know what? We talked about it. Probably not a good idea for you to do this. There is a conflict. Never was there a conversation that stated that, ever.
So was there ever a time that you thought that anyone would think that there was anything wrong with it prior to that legislative auditor report? That's the first you heard of it?
Yes. And in the auditor meeting that they had with the state auditors, I literally sat next to Glenn, who I've done audits with. Hey, Dana, good to see you. Well, how are you? Great, how are you? It's great to see you too. Never any question or concern. And again, if there was any concern that I was doing anything wrong, why would I be there? Why would there be any sort of question or like any sort of like I wouldn't be sitting there if I thought I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I'm like, instead of owning as an agency, hey, we made multiple mistakes. Hey, we shouldn't have done this or done that. Now you're trying to point fingers elsewhere and throw other people under the bus when it really needs to be, hey, we did a lot of things that we probably should correct. Instead, they're pointing the fingers outward. And it makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's not fair, and it's not right, and it's not okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being willing to share.
Yeah.